Good day, everyone. Hi, this is Steve Hess, Director of User Experience at OpenBOM. Welcome to today's webinar, BOM and Change Management. I'd like to welcome.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Great. I'd like to welcome you all here. Good day, everyone. This is Steve Hess, Director of User Experience at OpenBOM. And I think everyone can hear me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today's topic is on change management. I do want to be sensitive to everyone's time, and we will deliver this in under 30 minutes, and as well as take some questions at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's event will also include a brief live demo at the end on incorporating a change. So here is a quick outline of today's presentation. We'll be discussing the challenges of change. Of course, changes are permanent, but how do we manage them? We'll take a look back at what we call the good old days of change management and ECOs and how that works and what parts of that are still relevant today. We'll kind of peek into what the modern challenges of change are and how today's world of SaaS and cloud and other things are affecting it. And then we'll just kind of put forth what the the essentials of a good change process are. And we'll try to do some of that in our live demo, identifying what needs to be changed, implementing, actually making the change as well. So today's webinar is meant to be light and informal. If you have any questions along the way, please go ahead and post them in the chat area, and let me go ahead and make sure I'm taking a look at that. So, okay. So why keep track of changes? Yeah, the big deal, cost, right? Everyone manages cost, and keeping track of changes can have a great impact on cost, and some of the other things are listed here. Raw materials that I need to buy, serviceability and traceability is also something. I know I come from a compliance industry to some degree as well, and anything that's regulated or compliance, you'll have to be able to kind of look back in time and understand what part went in what product, and that includes everything from what motors in what ice maker to which ice maker is on a 747. So okay, so that's kind of something to get you thinking. Again, the purpose of today's webinar is to really just get you thinking about change and change management processes in your team or organization or in your company. So let's harken back for just a moment to the good old days of change process, and I certainly come from this time. Very paper-based at the time, of course. The process still holds up, but these are some of the pains that we had to go through. Finding and filling out paperwork, notifying everyone that needed to be notified, and getting approvals from all the people that needed to approve. And then I remember as a young engineer, a question on the ECO form that having to do with effectivity, and frankly, I didn't even understand what effectivity was as a young engineer, and when a change should or can be cut in to your manufacturing or your production is key, and it goes right back to cost. Do I need to scrap out everything I have on the shelf, or can I use what I have? So those are kind of the things that the ECO process is designed to drive and help you bubble up and discuss it within your organization. So that change process generally starts with something called the ECO. A lot of people may refer to it as the ECN or the ECR. These are numbers and requests. In my day, we referred to it as the ECO, the ensuring change order. Excuse me. And it is the demand. It drives the demand for the change. it is the often it's the starting point. It comes quite often from out of a set of requirements that are either on a new product, perhaps it's in development, or something that maybe has been in the field for quite some time. And these change demands can come from people in sales or purchasing, or you know, the guys down in the shipping department would say, look, if we change the feed on this thing, we could save a lot of money on shipping. So look for the origins of demand for changes can come across the organization. You should be willing to accept and take those those inputs, and then start a process around how do I think about the engineering change order. And this is completely independent of products or tools or any software or anything else that you're using. This is a good process to have and go through within your organization to validate some change requests that's coming down the line. So why? What's the big reason for this change? Is it cost reduction? Is it safety? Or has the part been canceled and I can no longer get it? The only thing I have left is on the shelf. Is there some compliance issue? We're shipping overseas. There's all kinds of things, like TUV if we're shipping into Europe on electrical parts and things. So the why is really important to document very crisply why the change needs to be made. That will help us identify the rest of these things. What's going to be changed? Sometimes that's an easy one, but in this example here, the length of the pump inlet. We're going to do an example in a minute where we're going to change the weight of a flywheel. And then there's some conversation that needs to take place. What serial number, which product, when, what's the date that I can cut this change in? What's its effectivity? There's a lot of discussion that happens around this, around something called form, fit, and function. We did an earlier webinar on that a few weeks ago. I'll provide that in a link at the end. Form, fit, and function is a great policy or set of tools to use to help you assess, how do I change things? When does the revision take place, etc. Other things in the ECO process should be, who's going to make this change? Who's responsible for, approving the change as well as approving the impact of the change. And then, finally, we usually always want to document what's the next level up in our product structure that's going to be impacted. Is there a BOM or an assembly or something up the line that consumes this change that will need to be notified as well? So those are the kind of things, the conversations that take place. Usually, it's like sometimes there's a team of people and et cetera. Making the change itself is often the trivial case. Here I've got an example of a CAD system where I lengthen increase the length of the inlet and the outlet ports. So again, quite often making the change is the trivial case. Incorporating the change is where it starts to get we start to get very interesting. So in this example that we're going to do here live in a moment, we've got an engine that I've used in some other webinars in the past, and we're going to make a change to one of the parts in that, and we're going to look at, hey, look, here's the existing bill of material for this particular engine. What needs to be changed? Who needs to be notified? What needs to be notified? And how are we going to capture that change? Again, back in the old day, we wrote all that by hand on some ECO form, and it followed the change around in a shop traveler or something, a set of papers. Today, it's often done in some electronic forms, and quite often shared over the internet. So the method that we use to incorporate the change might be different, but certainly the facts around doing it haven't changed very much. So we've assessed the change, the demand. We've made the change, and now we're going to incorporate it and set its effectivity and things like that. Okay. So as part of this demo, I'm going to use our product OpenBOM, and we're going to discuss a little bit about how OpenBOM helps you manage those changes now. And going into the future, next year, we'll be adding a lot of capability around how OpenBOM manages change and provides information about it and other things like that that might be interested to you, your company. So we welcome your feedback on this webinar, and as well as your demands and thoughts on, hey, how do we manage changes? I think we all know that, with 10 engineers, you'll get 10 different stories about how change is done or should be done. So at the top level here, we're going to capture. Sorry, I've got a typo there. We're going to capture changes from CAD or other sources. That's a very typical modern way to do things. And in our example, that's what we're going to do. We're going to incorporate some changes from some parts into that part or that item's master record. We're going to track how those changes flow into the bill of material. We often refer to that as the usage. We'll save some immutable snapshots, we'll archive some information around the revisions, and we'll see how various relationships are created between the items or master record and it's in the bills of material, and kind of how those in a system like OpenBOM or others, like Arena and other type of systems, how they might kind of manage that. And then we're going to sort of document and then recall some of those changes as needed. So that's the process we're going to flow through today. This is a little script for me about some changes that we're going to do live. And here's our demand. We have we have this, my company, or our company that you and I are a team on, builds a little engine, and we received some feedback from some customers and some field service guys that if the flywheel on this engine was a little heavier, it might perform a little bit better in the field. So that's the why is what we're going to do is we're going to increase the weight of this flywheel, and the why is to improve performance. So that kind of flows into from our ECO demand. So okay, I'm going to jump over to a bill of material that I've prepared ahead of time of this engine. If you were watching any of the earlier videos, you've seen this, or earlier webinars, you've seen this bill of material. And this is stored in OpenBOM. And let me let my video catch up here real quick. Okay. And we've decided, hey, we need to increase the weight on that flywheel. Now, the ECO doesn't often describe how it will actually be done. Often that's left to the engineers. It could, but in my case, I just said, look, we need to have some additional weight on that. And I'm going to assume the role of an engineer now. We're going to make some changes to that flywheel. I want to demonstrate it quickly that if you're using OpenBOM, OpenBOM keeps track of a link directly to the CAD system, and that generated this part. And we're going to just follow that link and open up that CAD system, take us right to that part. In this case, Onshape, but any of the other, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, Inventor, Fusion, same behavior for all of those. So as the engineer, I've followed that link from my bill of material right to that part, and I realized that here's my flywheel, and my plan of action here to make this a little heavier is just to simply reduce the size of the cutouts. These are the type of decisions that engineers would make. As an engineer, I'm just going to change that cutout there from 60 to 30 degrees. All right, that's what our new flywheel looks like, and that's what it looks like in the context of our assembly now. Okay, so I'm going to visit the properties of this flywheel. There's some automated ways to do this in Onshape and other CAD systems, but essentially I'm going to roll the revision of that flywheel from A to B. It's just that simple. Okay, I've now got a Rev B of that flywheel in this here, and I'm also going to use another OpenBOM feature, which is some integration to CAD systems, and we mentioned this in the beginning, where we'll go ahead and pull that information, those changes directly from a CAD system. So we've made the change in our CAD system. We've updated the metadata in our CAD system to reflect that that's now at the Rev B. And now I'm looking at OpenBOM's integration with that CAD system, and I'm saying, okay, I know that I've got a change. I'm going to update what we call an OpenBOM. I'm going to update the catalog again, which is another name for that item's master record in OpenBOM. So the OpenBOM Onshape integration in this case is running and extracting those changes and sending them out to OpenBOM. Okay, so here we go. We now have the flywheel part or item in our catalog. And we can see that the revision has been updated to Rev B. It's right here. We also have the ability to view some history about the change in the catalog. And since we were computing mass and some other calculations, we'll see that OpenBOM also captured those changes as well. So as I'm looking at this history of this part, I can see that the flywheel was set to Rev B by me a few moments ago, and also, by the way, the mass of the flywheel was updated because it was tied to the design change. So there's a couple of really key pieces of information that now we've captured electronically. They're forever tied to this part and its history within OpenBOM. And as you can see, this is a catalog that I've been using for quite some time to do some other webinars and things, and there's quite a bit of history has been amassed about that. Okay, so that's the essence of our change to that part. So now we want to pull that change back into our bill of material for the engine, and see if we can't finish up the CCO. So I returned to the OpenBOM tab for that bill of material in my browser, and update my browser, and I'll give this a second to refresh here. I think I might be a little bit ahead of the webinar. Okay, so we have rolled the change in, and we can see that our flywheel is now sitting at Rev B. Okay, so now we're at a place where we kind of have some decisions to make. In my example, I'm going to roll the revision on my bill of material as well. Again, I'm going to refer you back to some earlier webinar on form, fit, and function that will kind of help you decide whether or not should this change trigger a revision change at the BOM level. And that's a conversation that you usually during the design that you need to have. This has to do with this part's impact analysis on its upper level assemblies, which is why we identify those upper level assemblies and products on the ECO form. So okay, so I'm looking at I've got Rev B. I'm going to save a new revision of this BOM, and this BOM is already at Rev C, so I'm going to save a Rev D. So a couple of things have happened. Number one, I now have a Rev of the bill of material, a Rev D of the engine that's looking at Rev B of the flywheel. Okay, I also have some history about the bill of material that I can view, and I can generate some change reports either now or in the future. I can say, well, what was going on between Rev C and Rev D, and I can send that change report out to Excel and use that in documenting my change either in my company or at some future time in the future where someone comes back to me and says, hey, I really need to know, on that Rev D of the engine, which version of the flywheel was on that. So any application that's running will help you recreate that the history there. So that's helpful. And then I also have within OpenBOM, I have access to my earlier versions and revisions, where I can browse back through here and see that, like here, for example, in this Rev B of this bill of material, the flywheel was at Rev A. So that type of traceability is important, not only for the impact analysis on your business side, and passing that along down to purchasing or people that are doing costing and other things. It's also very important, again, in serviceability and that traceability. Something that in the old days, in the paper-based days, was almost impossible to track and be useful without really having to dig. So the computer and the cloud and things have given us this. So that is certainly something to think about. So. Okay, so what did we do here? We took a little tour of sort of an ECO process and how we capture the demands of an ECO and or of a change order, and how we make that change and have it flow down through the product design and through our company. We saw that in the case of OpenBOM, which uses an item master and a bill of material approach, we saw how those changes can flow directly from our CAD through the integration into the item master and on down through the BOM. And then we saw how we can capture the various states in history of the part and the BOM as we move along. We made some snapshots. By the way, those versions that I saved, those revisions that I saved in OpenBOM are mutable, so they will never change. And I can organize how that change process works within my team. So this is something that I want you to sit back and reflect on. A simple process like we just did today. How can you implement this, in your team? Look back to your ECO form, if you have one, that is sort of the manual definition of the process, and see how you can bolster that, as well as incorporate the new tools that are available to us, CAD systems and BOM managers and things. And then just kind of keep these bullets in mind, that the really the key things, the essential things to a good process are identification and of the change and documenting the demand, considering what the interchangeability is. This is back to form, fit, and function. In other words, what's the impact of the change I'm making? Is it a revision? Is it a new part number? Do I need to roll the rev on the upper level, on the one level up? OpenBOM has some tools for doing that now, and you'll see those greatly improve over the next quarter and into the next year. We'll be adding quite a lot of tools to help you manage and analyze that. And then finally, within your organization, what are the process and approvals that you need to go through, and who needs to get that information? Again, a cloud-based system where you can simply share, the change with someone does make life easier. So, okay, so with that, I will share this deck as always, as well as the video. There's some continued reading on Beyond PLM, a number of things about everything from how ECO paradigms work to more tactical things like managing product versions in revisions, and as well as some other things about, whether or not we should be, saving new part numbers and new revisions as well. So okay, I see we have a few minutes left. I would like to take a few questions. We can key them in here, or you can send them to support@openbom.com, where we will respond to everyone. Okay, I see I've got one question, and it is about, why did I roll the revision on the bill of material when I made the change to the flywheel? Well, in my example, thank you. That's a good question. And this goes straight back to form, fit, and function. I know you're hearing a lot of this, but it's very foundational. And within my organization, in this example, I'm following form, fit, and function, which says, that when I roll revisions, I do certain things. And so in my example here, I said, yeah, I'm going to roll the revision up on that bill of material so that I can track it through my organization. I didn't necessarily, need to. And in my example, I don't think the flywheel, I think we can see that the flywheel's form, fit, and function, probably didn't change. Certainly its fit didn't change, but its function is a little bit heavier. Its function did. So I chose to roll the revision on the bill of material. It's not necessary. Anyone who was shared onto that bill of material would see the change in OpenBOM, and certainly when I created a new revision, they would also be notified about that as well. So yeah, that was a good question. I don't know if it was a great answer, but again, I'm going to refer you back to form, fit, function. And okay, that looks like all the questions we have for today. I would like to thank everyone for joining. Again, you can learn more about us at openbom.com, and follow up to this session with your comments at support@openbom. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day.